All right, so let's jump right in. Whenever we try to change a behavior, what's the first thing we ask? It's always, did it work? Right? But what if that's not even the most important question to be asking? Today, we're going to dig into the hidden side of behavior change, all those unintended consequences that show up when you think you're only fixing one little thing.
So you have to wonder, is changing a behavior really as simple as just flipping a switch? We think, stop doing this or start doing that, and we just expect this clean, perfect outcome. But the reality? Oh, it is so much more complex than that.
I mean, look at this. The goal is always so simple. Change one specific behavior. But the reality is that every single change we make creates ripples. It's not like pressing a button on a machine. It's much more like dropping a stone into a pond. That one little change can affect so many other behaviors in ways we just don't see coming.
And that brings us to our first big idea here, what I'm calling the perfect button myth. This is this belief we have that our behavior plans are these perfect, predictable tools. We're about to see exactly why that's a pretty dangerous way to think.
So this means your job, our job, it's not just to ask if the behavior changed. We have to widen our lens and constantly be asking, okay, but did anything else happen that could be a problem? Just shifting your perspective like that, well, it moves the focus from just did it work to being a really responsible big picture observer.
Okay, so let's get into our first example. We usually think of reinforcement, giving rewards, as this totally positive, harmless thing. But what if it's not? Let's take a look at when rewards can actually go wrong.
Here's a super classic scenario. I'm sure many of us have seen this or maybe even used it. The plan sounds foolproof. Hey, if you finish this worksheet, you get the iPad. Seems like the perfect motivator, doesn't it?
But here's what can happen in reality. The promise of that iPad can create so much excitement and anticipation that the person actually stops working. They get totally distracted, and now they can't focus on anything but the reward. So the reinforcer itself has become the problem. We call this emotional responding.
So here's a simple way to remember it. The reward becomes too distracting. It's supposed to be helping the task, but instead it ends up competing with it for attention. And believe me, it doesn't stop there. Other weird side effects can pop up, like what we call adjunctive behaviors. These are little filler actions like pacing around or doodling while waiting for the reward. Or you can even see aggressive responses if there's a delay or competition for that reward. So yeah, reinforcement is definitely not some magic wand.
All right, let's move on to our next section. This one deals with something called the extinction explosion. It's what can happen when you try to get rid of a behavior by just ignoring it, and why that often backfires spectacularly before it ever gets better.
So first off, what even is extinction? Well, simply put, it's a procedure where a behavior that used to get some kind of reaction, like, say, attention, suddenly doesn't anymore. The whole idea is that over time, the behavior will fade away because, hey, it's not working for them anymore.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the catch. You've got to remember this. Before behavior dies down, it may blow up. And that blow up has an official name. It's called the extinction burst.
So check this out. This is what that burst actually looks like. Before you start ignoring the behavior, it's just chugging along at a normal level. Then, all of a sudden, it doesn't just fade away. It skyrockets. The person is basically screaming, "Hey, what gives? This used to work!" It's only after that massive spike that the behavior finally starts to come back down.
And here's something else that's really fascinating. During that burst, when the old behavior isn't working, the person doesn't just give up. Oh no, they get creative. They might try whining, and then when that doesn't work, maybe yelling, then maybe throwing something. This is called response variability. They're basically just trying everything in their toolbox to see what will get a reaction now.
Now this brings us to our final and maybe most well-known problematic procedure, punishment. We all kind of know it has its risks, right? But the true fallout, well, it goes way deeper than just stopping a behavior.
So the obvious fallout, you've got fear, crying, anger, aggression, but maybe the most damaging of all is this last one, escape and avoidance. See, the person doesn't just learn to avoid the behavior, they might start avoiding the whole task, or the room where it happens, or even the person delivering the punishment. They might start avoiding you.
But hold on, because this is where it gets really, really insidious. One of the most dangerous side effects of using punishment isn't even about the person on the receiving end. It's about the person who's giving it. Just look at this cycle for a second. Step 1. a problem behavior happens. Step 2, the adult uses punishment. Step 3, the behavior stops. Maybe just for a moment, but it stops. And what does the adult feel? Ah, relief. That feeling right there is an incredibly powerful reinforcer. But it's not reinforcing the kid's behavior, it's reinforcing the adult's behavior, making them way more likely to use punishment again. It is such a dangerous trap to fall into.
And this right here, it reveals the biggest flaw with punishment. It's usually just a temporary fix. Sure, it might suppress a behavior right in the moment, but it completely fails to teach a lasting, better replacement skill. It's basically a Band-Aid, not a cure. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the problems. Let's pivot to the solutions. What does a responsible path forward even look like? Well, here's what we can call the new playbook for ethical and effective practice. So, instead of jumping right to trying to stop a behavior, this playbook says, first, you have to assess why it's even happening. Then, you collaborate with everyone involved. And you always start with the gentlest options first. But the most important part? The real focus is on building skills, teaching things like communication and coping, instead of just trying to put a lid on a behavior.
When you boil it all down, the core principle here is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. The goal of modern ethical practice isn't just to stop a behavior. It's to teach a better one to take its place.
If you take just one thing away from our whole discussion today, let it be this: teach more, suppress less, and monitor always. That right there is the mantra for responsible behavior change. And that brings us right back to where we started. The next time you think about changing a behavior, whether it's in yourself or in someone else, don't just ask if it worked, ask yourself this: what ripples will you be looking for?